Don't you hate it when this happens to you? And oh no, your hinge mount breaks. What is up everybody? It's Adam with Adon Tech, and today we're going to show you how to potentially fix a broken hinge mount. I'm going to go through the steps of why this is a problem, how you can avoid that problem, and potentially repair the problem overall. So what I've got here is an HP Envy X360 convertible, and this one has the left or right facing hinge mount that's broken. We're going to be talking about it as though it's facing us and open. So in this configuration, it will be considered the left hinge mount that is broken. Now, as we tear this open, I will show you a little bit more about what this all entails. But this part right here is the hinge mount. The hinge runs up the side of the LCD panel itself. A lot of times people will describe this as a broken hinge, which to an extent is not completely wrong, but if you were to replace the hinge, then you would be replacing this piece as well, which goes under the underside here. What you see right here with these little brass knobs and this plastic, this is the piece and the part that broke out from the underside of the LCD lid. So what we're going to do today is take this lid apart, investigate the damages, and we're also going to see what repair options we have. First thing we're going to do, turn the computer on just to show it gets no display. Now I already know it's not getting any display, so the hope is that the display itself is not bad. This computer did take a 1-2 punch. Not only is it broken in that left hinge mount, but there is also some evidence of some cosmetic damage right here, as you can see. So if it took a hit on this side, it took a bump over here, it's potential the screen is broken, though it is not displaying any evidence of being cracked. I have connected this to an external display and I do get video out no problem, so I know that the computer itself is okay. But what we're going to try to hope here is that we can get this video cable that runs from usually about right in the middle over here, goes through this hinge, right around this hinge mount area. So the first thing we're going to do is turn the computer on. The power light's on. I know the computer turns on and I know that it gets video out through HDMI. What I hope at this point, because there's no physical defects in the screen itself, is that the cable that runs from about here all the way to this section of the hinge, that the cable has either separated from the LCD or from the underside on the motherboard itself. So now that we have the computer back off, we can go ahead and start taking it apart a little bit. We're going to start first by taking the underside bottom screws off, and we're going to just kind of investigate where we're at. Eventually we'll be removing this entire upper glass assembly piece to see if the LCD itself is connected properly with the cable. If it is not, we plug it back in, hope we get display, and if we do get display, the beautiful part about this is I can show you how to fix this broken hinge mount without having to spend a lot of money. So what I've got before me now is just the actual laptop itself. I've got my little magnetic screw holders, that way I can just kind of keep things there, and of course my iFixit screwdriver kit. What you've got here are 2 adhesive strips that are needing to be removed. When you remove those, you'll gain access to additional screws that will allow you to open up the laptop. You also have 2 T5 screws at the bottom. Usually underneath these strips, you're going to have just regular Phillips screws. You can use a spudger tool if you would like. That may help remove the adhesive. And then to keep it in place, you can just put it back on the bottom of the base itself. This separates very easily and likes to be very annoying. All right, what do you know? There's no screws on the bottom side here. Okay, well, never mind. No screws on the bottom, just screws. I got 3 Phillips screws on the top and then the 2 T5 on the bottom. So these screws will be easy enough to tell where they go, so I just kind of put them. So these screws will be easy enough. We're just going to put them there. If you need to mark anything, get a dry erase marker for this and you can mark where the individual screw goes. And then with these screws removed, you'll be able to open the base of the laptop. So you can do this in a couple of different ways. I usually find the easiest way is applying a little bit of pressure on the outsides here. Difficult in this configuration with the camera being in front of me. Otherwise, you can get a pry tool and do some separation where you can get in and then it just separates around the entire outside. This will come directly off. You're not going to go through the keyboard on this repair, which is nice. All right, I was able to get in near this USB side over here. And that gives me enough leverage to pull that out. Immediately, I see this. I have no idea what that is. It is very gross and very disturbing. Most likely some food. So if we place that here, it's right about here. Now, I don't see any food on this covering, so maybe a little bit of food or stickiness right there. I guess I should say this is not my laptop. And what we're looking for here is, remember, we have the hinge damage on this left side. We're gonna see that the LCD cable, why zoom in when you can bring the laptop to you? This is the side that's broken on the underside, and the cabling comes right here for the LCD. So it's not that far, and as we can see, it is connected. So this is not gonna be disconnected. This is not the reason why we're not getting any video. So it's potential, then what we're dealing with is a bad cable, because it is quite tight here. We're potentially dealing with a disconnected cable on the LCD side. And so we'll just go ahead and figure out what's going on. General safety as well when you're going to be working inside of this is get the battery prong connections and just pull the battery out. That way you know you're not going to cause any other issues. Be careful of any force on this here. This is the heatsink. If you cause any damage to that, you will have overheating. This computer looks like it has been opened before. And the interesting part is that I have not opened it before. So it's possible that somebody has attempted to repair this before. When I look inside right here, I can very easily see that there's wear marks on this screw. Like it's almost stripped as well. Somebody without experience attempted to open this and didn't put enough force on the screw itself to properly open it. We're just going to investigate the rest of the unit itself, because right now I know the only issue is display. So this little pull tab right here, we lift that up, and that will allow the LCD cable itself to be able to come up. Pry tool to give us some leverage, and then we can just pull the cabling straight out. We're going to want to investigate this cable to make sure there's no crimps or damages as well. The next step that we're going to want to do in this situation is we're going to want to investigate the actual LCD cabling there, and to make this job a lot easier, we're going to remove the hinge mounts from the laptop itself. Then we can remove the laptop and we'll be working solely on the screen. So for that, you'll need to disconnect the LCD cable, and it looks like on the bottom side here, we're going to have 2 screws that hold this mount in, 2 screws that hold this mount in, and then on this upper side, we're going to have this cabling that comes through. This may also be part of the LCD cabling. I know that we have our Wi-Fi connections here, and then one of these is also potentially a touch cable that gives us touch, but let's go ahead and investigate and see what we got. Okay, so I peel that back and I don't see anything out of the ordinary on any of this sort of stuff. Most likely this cabling right here is for the touch, and this cabling over here is for the display. This is a bigger 40-pin connection. So you can take your plastic tool and just gently go underneath and lift up the Wi-Fi antennas. You want to make sure that you don't cause any damage to these because it is irreversible and would be an absolute pain to replace. Okay, and then remove the additional cabling itself for what is presumed to be the touch screen. So now that we've got all the screws removed and we have the cabling removed, we can get some leverage to remove this piece itself. Easiest way for that, lift up the laptop, bring it back down. That will loosen the hinge mounts themselves. And then once those are loosened, you should be able to pull the laptop right out. But what we also uncover here with this is additional cosmetic damage. This hinge mount covering, I don't know what is on my finger. That is gross. Gross, gross, gross. This hinge mount covering right here is having an issue coming off. Oh, it's because of the, okay, yeah. That's because that didn't give any, there we go. Because that didn't move with it, okay. So this is essentially the mechanism that broke then. This is all integrated into one solid piece. So potentially you could buy this piece on eBay and then this piece would allow you to swap it out, but you still have to get into the LCD. So we'll get into that point in a moment. Otherwise I'll have an alternative solution to you as long as we do get display on the screen itself. So we'll set that aside. That weird thing came off my finger, so that's good. We'll move the computer out of the way, and then we're just dealing with the LCD itself. Now, forewarning when dealing with an LCD. These are exceptionally delicate. You're dealing with glass, you're dealing with multiple different layers, and since we already have cosmetic damage over on this left side here, it's going to be very possible that when we're removing this, it will shatter or it could break. So definitely attempt this sort of stuff at your own risk, but what we should be able to do is use a pry tool to gently remove this front LCD from the rear panel. There should not be anything holding it in place that makes this difficult, but it's also potential that this is taped on adhesively, which is going to stop us right away. So if we hear a crack and the video ends abruptly, we know what it is. So we're just going to put the pry tool in there very gently. Right there, that gives us a little bit of separation. We're going to try to move down this side. It is meeting me with some good resistance. That makes me fear that this is actually taped in. So we have separation here. We should be able to get more. It should keep on popping as we run this up. Let me get another tool. So what we're going to do is take some of these plastic tools right here. This will hold the screen open. Guitar picks, all that sort of stuff also work just fine. And I'm actually going to work down this bottom section here. All right, I can now hear as I run this down, it is taped. But this was able to separate the tape on that side, and we might get enough leverage to be able to undo the rest of this. Oh, it's also taped on the top. Okay, so that's going to be some of the LCD stuff that's being, or that's going to be some of the Wi-Fi cabling that's being held in. I'm not too concerned about breaking this at this point because it's already broken. It's just a matter of if it can be fixed without the part being necessary. When you're taking this apart, you want to be very careful as to not damage the back metal shell. So, all right, there we go. So what we had here, obviously, this is the tape that held it in. I don't know why it has these little plastic pull tabs at the top to be able to pull the tape out. There's no way that you can separate and then reach that and grab that without causing any damage to the screen or the back casing. That's one of the worst things that happened with these computers getting so much thinner, is that they made them with tape instead of holding in with clips and screws correctly. The lid just has a little bit of cosmetic damage to this part here. This is just going to be from the adhesive that was holding it down. This is all for the Wi-Fi antennas, but we do not need this part for now. So the next step is the final step pretty much. It's investigating this LCD itself to see. So as I was expecting, if we're on this left side here, this is actually the digitizer board, and this is what connects to the LCD and all that sort of good stuff. And this is the cabling for this screen itself, and we have to pull back some of this to make sure everything is all connected. And this side over here is for the touch itself. So more adhesive, we just gently peel back. This is most likely some sort of shielding. We should not need to go any further back. This cable that runs up here is for the webcam, microphone, that sort of stuff. And that is probably integrated in this cable then. So this might be touch webcam, or it's all integrated in this little circuit board here. So what we have right here is the LCD. And what I'm hoping for is that when we remove this tape, as gently as humanly possible, the LCD is disconnected, which it kind of is, but it came with the tape. So you can't tell for sure if that's what the problem was. Additional tape. Be careful doing this. You definitely want to make sure you don't stick yourself to yourself. So let's investigate this a little bit, shall we? Cosmetically, it looks okay. The cable did come out when I was removing the tape, but that's most likely going to be just because it's a bad design. There's no clips on this cable that hold it in place. I could have an entire TED Talk, if not 4, about why these are so terribly designed. So what we're going to do is put that LCD cabling back in. And make sure that's nice and snug. Let's put that tape back over there, and then we're going to go ahead and try something pretty cool. Instead of having to go through and make sure that everything is all reassembled and back together correctly, we're going to take a little bit of a shortcut. That shortcut involves the computer. It involves the LCD, and it involves putting the cabling back in on the motherboard. And okay, cabling's back in. Next, we're going to go ahead and connect that battery back so we can get power to the unit. And then we're going to carefully move this monstrosity and flip it around. Okay, don't drop anything, don't break anything, and this is the moment of truth. To see if we fixed the LCD issue and if that was a relation, we're going to turn the computer on and see if we get display. If we get display, boom, we know that was the problem. If we don't get display, then we know the cabling or the LCD itself is fully damaged beyond repair and would need to be replaced. The fact that the computer's on and I'm getting no display at all, no HP splash screen, no nothing, no brightness, no indicator that it's on, does tell me that the screen itself is unfortunately defective, most likely from some sort of an impact. It is also potential that the board itself has damage right here where it connects. Same situation, you're not going to be replacing that easily. So we do the caps lock light over here. That indicates that it's coming on, and that does mean that the unit itself is getting power and is not stuck on a splash screen. The power button just blinked. So I'm gonna try to keep all this one nice solid cut so it doesn't look like I'm doing anything fancy, because I don't want this to be like a, oh look, I fixed a screen. Haha, I'm the best. They work, they don't, they don't. Okay, I don't know if that noise just came up. That noise indicates that it was going into the Windows 11 operating system, or on the login screen. So we know for sure that we're not getting any display because we just heard it go into that. I've turned the computer back off. Now, what I see right here is damage to this cabling. I don't know if that's going to show up all that well. That right there is damage to the cabling, most likely from the impact. Pull off the model numbers on this cable, which is upside down for y'all. Search this up on PC Part Picker, or you can search it up on eBay. You find the actual part, you buy the actual part, you swap out that cable, and then you might get display. So let's pretend that that is the case. Let's say this has been a week from now. I bought the part, I'm trying it, and I get everything all connected. And let's say that we get display. Perfect. We have display. But at the end of the day, we still have that broken hinge mount on this upper LCD panel. One of the ways that you can go about repairing this without requiring the entire upper assembly piece or this hinge piece, you would need this LCD piece itself. So if you want to replace this LCD piece itself, same situation. you find the part number, which is not necessarily labeled on here. It's most likely going to be potentially this part number or some of these numbers over here. Maybe that SPS number, something over here may give you the code for what you're going for. And you can do the same thing, search on HP Part Picker, go to ebay.com. You can find this particular piece. I would expect this back cover panel might be anywhere from 50 to 70 bucks. The cabling might be 10 or 20 bucks. But the repair that would be the free solution, or just besides a bottle of epoxy, is you take the broken hinge mount itself, you line it up with where it broke, right? So I guess I didn't really describe the break all that well, but this is just held in pretty much with plastic. It's very, very cheaply made. All manufacturers are doing it right now. And this is where it broke off from. You can see the split right there from the hinge mounts, and then you can see right on this side the brass, as I mentioned earlier in the video. What you would do is you would take these screws out and take all the plastic away and everything. You would make a little bit of a chasm here, and then you would put this back in here. You'd apply some epoxy in here, and then you put this back on, and then you would put some more epoxy on it, but it'd have to be a very thin layer of epoxy. Super, super thin layer of epoxy that you would hope would hold correctly. And then if you get it held into place, that would be okay. Alternatively, you can drill through on this side and put like a couple of washers or something like that and nuts on the side, but then you're gonna have a cosmetic nightmare that's not gonna really look that good and can scrape other equipment if it's in your laptop bag. But what I was hoping for this video is that this cabling would work. I get this connected right here, and then we're able to go ahead and, you know, have a functional unit. But those are some of the things that you take and things that you do when you're going through a repair on a computer. Thank you so much for joining me on this repair. It is unfortunate that it did not go the way that we had intended, but I might order a cable, make another video out of it, like part 2, the redemption arc or something like that. But thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Ben the Don with the Don Tech, and I will see you guys in the next one.